One of the main beliefs that's rising on the scene today that we deal with a lot on this channel is Hebrew Israelism. And as you know, if you've been around, one of the key places that Hebrew Israelites like to go to prove their identity as being the true Israelites is Deuteronomy chapter 28. I'm going to start off by reading some of it to you. We're going to start in verse 15, and then we're going to get into this. We might be here a while tonight. Thanks for coming in. Much love to y'all. How you doing? But it will be, if you do not listen to the voice of Yahweh your God. The LSB translates every time there's the tetragrammaton as Yahweh. To keep and to do all his commandments and his statutes with which I am commanding you today, that all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. So this is the fundamental element of what's going on here. It's curses for not keeping the commandments. Now, if you notice, I started in verse 15. Why is that? Well, if you notice, there's verses before that, ladies and gentlemen. What are the verses before that? Here, let me fix this camera a little bit. The verses before that are verses 1 through 14, and they are blessings. Meaning, if the Israelites obey, they'll have blessings. A lot more curses than blessings as you read this, but we're not doing the blessings tonight. Cursed shall you be in the city. Cursed shall you be in the field. Some of you raised Pentecostal gospel churches like me, and there's that song, we'll be blessed in the city, blessed in the field when we go. How's it go? Blessed, right? Some of you know. Imagine singing this version. You'll be cursed in the city, cursed in the field, cursed when you come and when you go. That's what's going on. Cursed shall your baskets and your kneading bowl be. Cursed shall be the offspring of your body and the produce of your ground, the increase of your herd and the young of your flock. Cursed shall you be when you come in, and cursed shall you be when you go out. Verse 20, Yahweh will send upon you the curse, confusion, and rebuke, and all that you send forth your hand to do until you are destroyed, and until you perish quickly on account of the evil of your deeds, because you have forsaken me. Yahweh will make the pestilence cling to you until he has consumed you from the land where you are entering to possess it. Yahweh will strike you with consumption and with fever and with inflammation and with fiery heat and with the sword and with scorching wind and with mildew, and they will pursue you until you perish. And the heaven which is over your head shall be bronze, and the earth which is under you iron. That should be understood, that part right there, to be poetic, saying you ain't getting nothing from the ground. This is like the Genesis 3 curse that happens to all of humanity on steroids. You guys see that? That's what's going on here. I hope we're tracking with what's happening. Because if you notice, these essentially are the curses that we would see Adam and Eve get, except at a whole nother level. Meaning after the fall in the garden, that's why I referenced Genesis 3, you have something somewhat similar happening. Do you guys notice that? That's partially what's going on. I'm trying to fix some of the, I don't like some of the color here. Trying to mess around with a little, I don't know if we got it better yet here, but I'm trying to get a little bit different than it is. Okay. All right, let's see. Continuing on, Deuteronomy chapter 28, as we read it, and we are in verse 24. Yahweh will make the rain of your land powder and dust. From heaven it shall come down on you until you are destroyed. Yahweh shall cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You will go out one way against them, but you will flee 7 ways before them, and you will become an example of terror to all the kingdoms of the earth. And your carcasses will be food to all the birds of the sky and to the beasts of the earth, and there will be no one to frighten them away. Yahweh will strike you with the boils of Egypt. Brand new Bible, but I am going to highlight that. Verse 27, Yahweh will strike you with the boils of Egypt. I wonder if that's a figurative Egypt or literal Egypt. sounds like it's referring back to Egypt when they were actually there before. So it seems like boils of Egypt would be referring to the actual land because that's where those boils happened. Except this time it's going to be on them instead of the Egyptians. So it seems like it's actually talking about Egypt, huh? I'll just remember that. No particular reason. And with tumors and with the scab and with the itch from which you cannot be healed, Yahweh will strike you with madness and with blindness and with bewilderment of heart. And you will grope at noon as the blind man gropes in darkness. Notice, I just want to stop here. Notice how I mentioned that a lot of these curses are Genesis 3 maximized. When I say Genesis 3, I'm referring to the curses that Yahweh gave as a punishment for sin on Adam and Eve, right? And on the very earth itself, no doubt. But you also have another thing happening thematically, which is what happened to the Egyptians during your Exodus is what's going to happen to you if you become like the Egyptians in the hardness of your heart. Are we tracking? So I know, we kind of argue a lot of times about Deuteronomy 28, but you know what? We need to just sit back and look at it as God's word, not just the debating element. This is God's word. And one thing that applies to you and me, regardless of who you are watching, listening, and it's not an easy lesson because all of us have had to find this out in some way or another. Practical application is that our sin has real consequences. These things in here you've seen happen to others, yourself, in various ways at various times in various places. I understand these are given to the Israelites, by the way. We understand that. Deuteronomy means second law, or the second giving of the law, essentially in Greek. But isn't it true? Your sin, my sin, has consequences. This reminds us of that, and it's not always an easy lesson. Is it? This isn't just a debate. This is to remind you. We will reap what we sow. It's no joke, is it? It's no joke. You will grope at noon as the blind man gropes in darkness, and you will not succeed in your ways, but you shall only be oppressed and robbed all your days with none to save you. That's important too, by the way. I'm going to underline that. I'll probably explain why later. You shall betroth a wife, but another man will violate her. You shall build a house, but you will not live in it. You shall plant a vineyard, but you will not use its fruit. Your ox shall be slaughtered before your eyes, but you will not eat of it. Your donkey shall be torn away from you, and you will not be returned to you. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies, and you shall have none to save you. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, while your eyes look on and yearn for them all the day long, but there will be nothing you can do. A people whom you do not know shall eat up the produce of your ground and all your labors, and you will never be anything but oppressed and crushed all your days. And you shall be driven mad by the sight of what your eyes see. Yahweh will strike you on the knees and legs with sore boils, from which you cannot be healed, from the sole of your foot to the top of your head. Yahweh will lead you and your king, whom you have set over you, to a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you will serve other gods, wood and stone. You shall become an object of horror, a proverb, and a byword among all the people where Yahweh drives you. You shall bring out much seed to the field, but you will gather in little, for the locust will consume it. You shall plant and cultivate vineyards, but you will neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm will devour them. You shall have olive trees throughout your territory, but you will not anoint yourself with the oil, for your olives will drop off. You shall become the father of sons and daughters, but they will not be yours, for they will go into captivity. Your cricket shall possess all your The cricket shall possess all your trees and the produce of your ground. The sojourner who is among you shall rise above you higher and higher, but you will go down lower and lower. It's kind of interesting there because it's got a sojourner among you. Now, they translate this a certain way, but I think we can understand this is saying when they're in the land of Israel, this part right there, because it's a sojourner among them. not just a sojourner anywhere. He shall lend to you, but you will not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you will be the tail. So all these curses shall come on you and pursue you and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you would not listen to the voice of Yahweh your God to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded you. And they shall become a sign and a wonder on you and your seed forever. Now, one thing I want to mention about that is sometimes you'll see folks bring that up, and I say, okay, if that's the case, then how could anyone have ever forgotten that they were Israelites if this is supposed to be the sign that's going to follow them forever? Because, see, there's nothing in here as you go through these curses about losing your identity. There's nothing in here that says you'll forget your heritage. You won't know your ethnicity. You won't be an Israelite. You'll think there's nothing even like that. Shouldn't that curse be in here? Also, because it seems like it should be in here somewhere, right? Also, shouldn't somewhere in the Bible say, if you do lose your identity, and I'm saying anything like this, I would take any kind of language. If you do lose your identity, use Deuteronomy 28. I understand it's not going to have the chapter, but use this section of the Bible to determine who you are again. But see, that would all be too clean, wouldn't it? Yeah? Shout out to you for joining, Aria Israel. Shout out to you, Jimmy Berman. How you doing as well? We got a couple different people in here. How you doing, D-New? What's up, what's up, what's up, what's up? Great to see y'all. Remember, we are reading God's word. We're in Deuteronomy chapter 28, and we're going to verse 47. Because you did not serve Yahweh your God with gladness and a merry heart because of the abundance of all things. Therefore you shall serve your enemies, whom Yahweh will send against you in hunger and thirst and nakedness and lack of all things. And he will put an iron yoke on your neck until he has destroyed you. Now, I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint here in a second. So this is just reading it. This is not a full refutation. Just hope you know that. Do a little bit of commentary as we go by, though. And one thing I'll say there is sometimes you'll see these guys, these gals say, Google a picture of an iron yoke, and who do you see? Do we think that's a good argument? First of all, you can find other people with iron yokes on their neck. And I'm going to show you a verse later on that actually mentions specifically other people with iron yoke on their neck. Did you guys know that? Did you know that there are other people in the Bible who got an iron yoke on their neck? It wasn't just only Israel, because sometimes you'll hear that and they'll try to relay that. Actually, let me just read it to you, okay? Jeremiah 28:14. Have you ever seen it? I'll bring it up here in a second, but let me tell you what it says. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I have put upon the neck of all these nations an iron yoke to serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and they shall serve him, for I have given to him even the beasts of the field. So there, Yahweh is saying through the prophet Jeremiah that guess what? All these nations are going to have iron yokes on their neck because they're going to serve Nebuchadnezzar. Jeremiah 28:14. It doesn't refute the Bible, but it does refute the misuse of the iron yoke passage in here. Go through your Bible, go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, go to verse 48, and beside Deuteronomy 28:48 in your Bible, put Jeremiah 28:14. You see? What's up, Berean Babes? Everyone subscribe to her podcast, her program as well. Tobiah Ben, contact me, and maybe we can set it up. I've got a lot of debates coming up. I got one with Zion Lex actually this Sunday night. So we might be able to do it, but remind me if we ever talked before. I don't remember. Yo, shout out to Michael Williams. Echoes in the house as well. Got a lot of great people. I'm so glad to have every single one of you. And I'm not just saying that because this show is no fun when no one watches because you feel like you're just talking into the void. So please hit that like button and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell and leave some comments. It helps. Now we're still in Deuteronomy 28. We're in verse 49. Yahweh will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as the eagle swoops down, a nation whose tongue you shall not understand. Sometimes these guys will say, oh, well, America has the sign of the eagle. Well, so does Mexico. So do lots of nations. It's like, the point is the swiftness, not the symbol on their flag anyway. The point is it's going to be fast. That's what that's saying. It seems incredibly clear and obvious. That's what it's saying. A nation of fierce countenance who have no respect for the old, nor show favor to the young. Moreover, I shall eat the offspring of your herd and the produce of your, turning the page, ground until you are destroyed, who also will not allow grain, new wine or oil, and the increase of your herd or the young of your flock to remain for you until they have caused you to perish. And I shall besiege you in all your gates until your high and fortified walls in which you trusted come down throughout your land, and it shall be besiege you in all your gates throughout your land, which Yahweh your God has given you. Notice that the besieging happens in the Israelites' land. The walls are coming down in their land. Why is that important? Well, if we're talking about this being fulfilled as one Westers and those guys say in the transatlantic slave trade, it wasn't their land. Now, what would the Hebrews say? Well, it was their land at the time because that's where they were. Well, how does that really work? It's clearly saying, this land I've given you is where's this going to happen. Isn't that obvious? I think it's obvious. That is what it's saying. So that's where the siege warfare needs to happen. And guess what? When you read the Bible, you find out it happened in the Bible. The siege warfare against the Israelites already happened. Yeah. Verse 53. Then you shall eat the offspring of your own body, the flesh of your sons and of your daughters, whom Yahweh your God has given you, during the siege and the distress by which your enemy will oppress you. Cannibalism, was it fulfilled in the Bible? Yes, if you've read Kings and Chronicles and passages like that, you'll see where the cannibalism was a feature of the siege warfare, and the Bible brings it out to show you that it happened. The man who was refined and very delicate among you shall be hostile toward his brother and toward the wife he cherishes and toward the rest of his children who remain. Even the nice guys, not so nice. That's what happens when stuff goes down. So that he will not give even one of them any of the flesh of his children, which he will eat. This is pretty messed up. Since he has nothing else remaining during the siege and the distress by which your enemy will oppress you in all your gates. It's saying he's going to be holding on to that cannibal meal right there, real hard, real tight. The refined and delicate woman among you, who would not venture to set the sole of her foot on the ground for delicateness and refinement, shall be hostile toward the husband she cherishes and toward her son and daughter, and toward her afterbirth which issues from between her legs, and toward her children whom she bears, for she will eat them secretly for lack of anything else during the siege and the distress by which your enemy will oppress you in the gates. What is that saying? It's hard to hear, isn't it? It is saying that the woman's going to give birth in the siege situation and is going to want to eat her own children as well as her own afterbirth. It's hard to hear, isn't it? We have our first super chat of the night. Someone who's done so much in so many ways for yours truly, whom you guys have known and seen. My man, Mike, echoes in the house. Thank you. You're the first and only super chat, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Seriously. Where you at anyway? Hit me up. Text me. We could go get some tacos tonight or something. I'm planning on kind of going long, but let's see what's up. If not, maybe tomorrow. Go buy one of those spots down the block, you know? Just text me, but I won't be able to respond right now, you know, probably. But anyways. How you guys doing? D.W. Conley says, I saw some of Stephen Darby's teaching. Is he a Hebrew Israelite? Well, he was. He is passed away now. And Stephen Darby gave the appearance of being a traditional church preacher on the outside. But when you actually start analyzing his teachings, he taught really weird things, such as getting magic water or something like that from the continent of Africa and brought it back. And there's secret hours in which certain spells are more effective. And he taught his congregation to chant curses at people. And he influenced a lot of people. We call them Darbyites in apologetic circles. Who's a Darbyite? They're not people who literally say they follow Stephen Darby. They're people that we know are influenced by Stephen Darby and carry on his teaching. Dante Fortson's a Darbyite. Sister E's a Darbyite. Kelly Richardson's a Darbyite. William Brown's a Darbyite. Richard Katz probably is a Darbyite too then. Yeah, I think Richard Katz is the Darbyite. From what I've heard. Verse 58. If you are not careful to do all the words of this law, which are written in this book, to fear this glorious and fearsome name, Yahweh your God, then Yahweh will bring wondrous plagues on you and plagues on those who are your seed. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about or why I'm laughing. I'm sorry. Some of you do, though. Wayne Martin says, love your content, vocab, preaching the real gospel. Thank you, and thank you for the super chat. Thank you. And look, people, I just want to say something real quick. The reason why all of you are watching, the reason why you should be watching if you're a Christian, let me put it that way, is because you love the Lord, you love his word. Not saying you're perfect, not saying you don't have problems, not saying you're flawless, but ultimately, that's where your heart is. That's whom you seek. That's who you want to be with for all eternity. That's who you want to model yourself after, right? If that's you, you care about truth. You care about God's people, the church of all stripes and types all over the globe. That's why we're here tonight. Not because we are mad at a certain people. Not because they ruin my family, so I hate them. Not because, you're a racist bigot. Anything like how those can't be good reasons. Not because I was in the Hebrewites and they burned me and now I'm going to get back at them. It's got to be a love for the Lord ultimately. You'll burn out if that's not your motivation in this thing, man. And so let's come together and have a Bible study. Yeah, it's an apologetic context, but let's do this. And that's what we're doing. All right. Yahweh will bring wondrous plagues on you, and plagues on those who are your seed, even great and enduring plagues, and miserable and enduring sickness. And he will bring back on you all the diseases of Egypt. I am highlighting that. Now, that's verse 60. Go in your Bible, highlight verse 60 where it says Egypt. Highlight the word Egypt also in verse 27. I'm going to tell you something real quick. There is this theme in Deuteronomy 28 that is done intentional by Moses, where what he's doing is saying the things that you escaped from during the Exodus and the Passover, the things that fell upon the Egyptians are going to happen to you. This is a de-exodusing. This is a reversal. Do you guys understand this theme that is present in Deuteronomy 28? This is important to understand. That's why verse 68 is so fundamental and so key. It's not incidental that some of the things that are going to happen to Israelites are specifically things that happened to the Egyptians during when God brought them out so miraculously. It's not an accident that the Exodus is a repeated refrain as far as a theme found in here. Do you guys understand? So when it says the diseases of Egypt, it could just say diseases and describe them. There's a reason why it's diseases of Egypt. Egypt is mentioned 3 times. And the ultimate, that's why it's the sort of last verse of the chapter. I understand they weren't chapters, but it's sort of ultimate to this section to say you're going to not just experience this in Israel, you're going to go back to where you came from. Do you see how bad it is? Do you see this? This is why this is so heavy. Imagine being amongst God's people and hearing Moses say, this is what's going to happen to you if you don't fulfill this covenant. Heavy, heavy, heavy. And yet it happens. So don't forget, it says he will bring back on you. Notice it says back. Happening again. All the diseases of Egypt of which you were afraid, and they will cling to you. And also every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law. It's saying even other stuff, bruh. Yahweh will bring on you until you are destroyed. Then you shall remain few in number. Verse 62, few in number. That is a massive defeater for the Hebrew Israelite position. It's few in number thing. Whereas you were as numerous as the stars of heaven because you did not listen to the voice of Yahweh your God. And it will be that as Yahweh delighted over you to prosper you and multiply you, so Yahweh will delight over you to make you perish and destroy you, and you will be torn from the land. where you are entering to possess it. What? So imagine they're about to go into the land. And God is saying, hey, you guys, before you get to where I told you you're going to go, let me tell you something. This happens, and you're going to be removed from this land. So again, this is clear that these are going to happen in Israel, but it's also clear they're going to be removed from their own land. Verse 64, moreover, Yahweh will scatter you among all peoples from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Now, this is interesting because this would include not just Africa. It would include Africa, wouldn't it? That's a continent, not a country. We know that. It would also include the continent of Asia and the continent of Europe. Do we need to keep on going? All over the earth, people. This is interesting because sometimes people are like, well, I'm going to go too far off if I keep on talking about this, but it's all over. And there you shall serve other gods, wood and stone, which you or your fathers have not known. Moreover, among those nations you shall find no relief, and there will be no resting place for the sole of your foot. But there Yahweh will give you a trembling heart, failing of eyes, and despair of soul. So your life shall hang in doubt before you, and you will be in dread night and day, and shall not have any faith in your life. In the morning you shall say, would that it were evening. And at evening you shall say, would that it were morning, because of the dread of your heart which you dread, and because of the sight of your eyes which you will see. You see how horrible these punishments are, and you see how horrible it is, what happens ultimately to Israel in the pages of Scripture itself. Now, why does all that matter? You know, God wants us to obey him because we love him. Think about if you got kids. You're like, you should do this because we want to obey. But let me lay out the consequences of what's going to happen if you don't obey. First of all, you need to be clear so you know it's not a surprise. Second of all, let that be a motivation. Verse 68. Here we go. And Yahweh will bring you back to Egypt in ships, by the way about which I spoke to you. You will never see it again. And there you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but there will be no buyer. Now, there's actually more in Deuteronomy 29 I wish we could talk about. There's also actually more in Deuteronomy 27 that I wish I could talk about, because there's curses on Mount Ebal in 27, and maybe even some archaeological finds associated with that. And then verse 29 is the covenant at Moab. So this is all very significant. We just don't have time. That's good to see, Gwen. I'm putting your comment on the screen. Need more people like you. Just remain humble in the process, my friend. We can judge rightly by God's word, but we don't want to become judgmental or simplistic in our thinking where we think we're better just because we're bringing that word of truth and trying to help others to see it. But I love it, and I hope that you can motivate people. You just got to stay optimistic. Be a happy warrior. Please. All right. Now, we've read Deuteronomy 28 together. I wish we could read more, but I need to get in this presentation. So it's going to take me just a second to set it up. Just give me a second. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you still hear me? Okay. How are we doing out there? Okay. Everybody feeling all right? Okay. Now I'm going to drag this thing over. Let's see what it does. Okay. I knew they was going to do that. Try to hog the whole screen, you know. There we go. Okay. All right. Okay. I think these dimensions should work. If not, I might mess with it later, but I think these dimensions will work. Let's talk about this, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Deuteronomy 28:68. When did it happen? When did it happen? Now, a few things. Number one, as Eric Mason and Damon Richardson brought out years ago, and this is known in biblical studies, they just did a really good job of explaining it. It's a little weird to talk about Deuteronomy 28 being fulfilled. Deuteronomy 28 is not a prophetic passage. What is Deuteronomy 28? Well, as I mentioned earlier, deutero is from a Greek word. It's like second. And when you get to Namas, that's law. This is the second law. So this is a reiteration of everything at Sinai. And of course, at the end of this, you have curses and blessings. This is actually common for what would happen in what's called the ancient Near East at this time, where you had these vassal treaties, suzerain treaties, which are treaties between a greater power and a lesser power. They're subjects. Now, this is a little bit different because you have a loving king. This is different because it's not a human king, and it's not just the God sanctioning it. It's literally a covenant with God himself. These are sort of like terms of a contract, but I don't like the term contract when we're talking about covenants, because covenants are filled with the wonder of Yahweh's love, not just legal stuff, for lack of a better word. It's kind of like if you look at your marriage as only a contract. Doesn't that short sell what it's supposed to be? Similar with this. However, there are terms for violations. So it's like, if this, then this will happen. Now, part of the reason I'm going over this is background for the debate that I have this Sunday with Zion Lex. We're not talking about Deuteronomy 28, but I want to set some of the stage for you as you hopefully get a chance to watch this and hear it. I believe it's going to be a fruitful, positive blessing to all who hear by God's grace. That's my real intention. That's what I really pray for. No joke. You know, how much does it help someone if you just quote, he makes me look bad, and I try to make him look bad? I'm hoping it doesn't devolve into that. That's not what I want. I'm hoping for a Bible study that is a blessing to every person, regardless of where they fall on the spectrum. It's an important question. Who are the biblical Israelites today? Now, we're going to define Israelite different because it's the term biblical in there, and it's the term today in there. But it is a Sunday. It is on Sonetta. Pray for me, come through, and I hope that this live stream tonight is a helpful background for you as you watch it. Now, let's talk about first what the Bible is. Most of us know this. I get this. Now, I forgot that I got this slide from a Catholic website, and it's got 73 in there. I forgot about that. Okay. Anyways, I'm not using those anyways. Part of this I just put in there today, and I didn't change that part. My goodness, I just noticed that. Okay, now let's take a look at this here. All right. This is where these things happened. The little red part is pretty much Israel. You can see what it's around at that time. See that? Not too far from Egypt. You know, not too far. Is it? No, it's not. All right, now, this is where it is today. It's a little more professional right now. Now, you see. This is the land we're talking about. Yes, there are Hebrew Israelites who believe that Israel, the nation, is actually located somewhere in the continent of Africa. They are in the minority, and we're not really dealing with that today, although I do have a program on it. Maybe someone can drop the link to that program in the live stream since it's relevant right now. So this is what we're talking about. You see this. Now, the term the Middle East, I just want to discuss that briefly. It is actually true that the term the Middle East, number one, is a newer term, and number two, could be easily described as Eurocentric because it's in relationship to Europe that it's Middle East. A better term, although less popular, is Southwest Asia. You may say, well, but then, yeah, is it still directional? Because it's saying within the sort of Asian continent, for lack of a better word, the southwestern part of that. It is a more accurate, not Eurocentric term, Southwest Asia. Or if you want to tighten it a little bit, you could say Levant. Now, the etymology of Levant is interesting. The etymology of Levant is interesting. It's an older Italian word, but it doesn't have the same sort of connotation where it's openly understood, oh, Middle East in relationship to Europe. Now, the term doesn't matter a whole lot because we should know what we're talking about, right? It's over here. But this is Southeast Asia, and I'm okay with using that because the Bible itself in the New Testament just uses the term Asia Minor. You may say, yeah, but they're getting it from but the Bible itself uses the term, and it's not because it's in relationship to Europe or something. And so with that same kind of understanding or thinking, saying, okay, Southeast Asia, I think that works fine. Anyways, that's the area. Like I said, again, sometimes called Levant. Now, those are better than Middle East. You're not an evil person if you Middle East. They still use Middle East a lot. And people know what you're talking about when you say it. But it's in relationship to Europe. Okay, that's where it comes from. And it doesn't really come about until the 1900s. Well, it comes about in the 1800s, but doesn't really gain traction until the early 1900s. Anyways, here we go with this. That's a part I'm skipping. I just want to show you something here. As we kind of look at all this, what's going on tonight, I'm resetting before I really get into what we're about to leap into right now. If you hold on. Are large chunks and sections of ancient histories that talk about when Deuteronomy 28 happened. What I mean specifically is when the Israelites went into servitude, bondage, slavery, when ships sometimes also were explicitly involved in the accounts I'm about to read you, and also Egypt is sometimes explicitly involved. Sometimes you don't have all three mentioned in the accounts I'm going to read you. Sometimes you do. But you can kind of see, verse 68 has happened over and over again. So before I leap into those, why am I showing this on the screen? And I know you can't even see it. This is, as of now, the very first time that the claim of Hebrew Israelism was ever made. Did he call it Hebrew Israelism? No, I understand that. But that's what it is. It's never been documented that anyone before this date made the claim explicitly. I'm not talking about parallels with Black Americans who say we are like the Israelites of old in our captivity, and here's a song about it, and nickname this person. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about saying we are the blood Israelites. Now, in this newspaper report that I have on the screen from the Saturday Evening Kansas Commoner, take a screenshot of this. It's going to get clearer in a second. This is the first published known account of William Crowdy ever being mentioned. And what it does is mentions him in July 7th, 1898, and says that he had his vision earlier. Oh, did I say 1898? Oh, that's a typo. It's supposed to say 1889. Oh, man. I gotta fix that. It's not, okay, by the way, real quick, it's not 1898. That is a typo on my end, okay? I'm correcting it right now. It's supposed to say July 7th, 1889. The 9 and 8 got inverted. And so I'm going to show you up close now, all right? Do you see the green highlight? It mentions the Church of God and Saints of Christ is a new religious organization that has lately invaded Kansas. So this is the first account that we have as of now. Now, maybe we'll find an earlier one. I'm doing research on this, so I'm okay with that. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because up to this time, we don't know of anyone in all of history who ever made this claim. Ever. Regardless of what your teachers taught you, Israelites, because this is the fact of the matter. This church is composed of both white and black men and has no color line. So the first Hebrew Israelite group was integrated. This is a secular source. This is not one of their sources. It's reporting on them. Do you guys understand that? They're in Wichita, Kansas. By the 7th article of their faith. So whoever wrote this report actually is referencing their own articles. And I've read the articles of the COGASOC. You could read them online. And even though this doesn't mention them being the real Israelites or anything like that, you know from the fact that they have their articles established that that is what they're claiming. Now look at this. By the 7th article of their faith, the members are all required to kiss the bishop or presiding pastor when received into the church. All the members also salute one another with a kiss when they meet or pass each other on the street. Now here's the thing. Notice that it's an integrated group. This is after Reconstruction on the beginning of Jim Crow. If you know what that means, that's a big deal because it's a mixed group and they're kissing each other. Now, How literal do you want to take the holy kiss? That's up to you. Some kind of greeting is in order when brothers and sisters get together in fellowship. If you're in France, the French still to this day, you know, that's what they do. I was over there. Some Italian, you know, this is like, okay, whatever. Here's the radical nature, though. What Crowdy was doing is even in the street. So imagine if a black member of the Church of God and Saints of Christ was walking down the street in Wichita and saw a white member who was a lady, they would, right there on the street, guess what? It got Crowdy in trouble because of this. But it also shows you how different the first Hebrew Israelite group was than the modern groups. Not just was it integrated, the black and white members were kissing each other on the cheek. Hebrew Israelism has got a lot more racist since 1889, hasn't it? Not all, but a lot. All the members saluted. This church now has 65,000 members. This article was published in 1889. They've already got 65,000 members. Now, that would be their self-reporting. But it's not impossible. Because I've looked at this, by the way, very closely. This church now has 65,000 members in the United States and 700 members in Kansas. There are 10 branches or temples now established in Kansas, one each at Winfield, Emporia, Strong City, Wigwam, Florence, South Topeka, North Topeka, Lawrence, Lecompton, and Larned. This is just in Kansas, people. Bishop Crowdy, the organizer of the church, is a unique individual and has had some remarkable adventures and experiences since he received the first revelation from God on November 22nd, 1888. As of now, unless we get any different information, because research does that, this is the birthday of Hebrew Israelism, November 12th, 1888. What's the reason I say that? That's as old as the religion is, regardless of what your teachers told you. Because guess what? Denmark Vesey never claimed to be an Israelite. Did he make parallels? Sure. But when someone tells me Denmark Vesey claimed to be an Israelite, you got to show me the quote. I have never had someone show me the quotes. I have books on Denmark Vesey on the shelf. I have books about him. I've read a lot on to try to find out if it's true. Nat Turner did not claim to be an Israelite. If you can find difference and show me, then I'll listen. Because whenever it happened. No need to lie about it. But as of now, this is the oldest you've got. He came near being mobbed at Fort Worth, where the white people objected to him greeting white ladies with the holy kiss. They tried him for insanity 3 times there, and failing to convict him on this charge, they tried him by Judge Lynch's code and decided to hang him. Wow. Now, this is what the article says. So this is someone in the paper, and the paper we're reading is from 1889. Excuse the typo. It's called the Saturday Evening Kansas Commoner. You can find this at newspapers.com. This is not secret. You just got to know where to look. All right. He's telling them what is happening. Because look what it says. While he was on the verge of the abyss through which flows the dark river, he received, he says, what it's saying is right before he's about to get hung. And notice it says, he says. So this is self-reporting, meaning Crowdy told someone at the paper this. Do you guys understand? You got to kind of follow these older papers are different than our modern papers. A revelation direct from God in which the war with Spain was foretold. Anyways, he came near being mobbed. Now look, so he's saying he foretold the Spanish-American War. He communicated his revelation to the people who agreed not to hang him if it came true. As everybody knows, it did come true. So that's what he's saying. Ariah Israel is a Hebrew Israelite, and he says, none of this matters. So check it out. Check it out. I'm going to chastise you a little bit. I hope you still stick around, but I feel like, honestly, you need to be chastised, okay, with all due respect. History does matter. You Hebrew Israelites don't get to point to history, and you almost always do so with a revisionist perspective, meaning you almost always get the facts wrong because you have conspiracy theories and you twist what actually happened. And a lot of times there's not really careful research. You guys don't get to point to history as proof of your claim and then tell us, the Christians who inspect your claims, oh, none of this matters. The history of our movement, none of it matters. It's irrelevant. Of course it's relevant, because your religion did not exist before then. You think it did because you buy the claims of your religion. You think, oh no, I'm just a descendant of Jacob, something you could never prove, my friend, and you know it. You know down in your heart, you can never prove that every single male ancestor from Jacob to you, that's like almost 100 generations. That's like 99 generations. You can't prove all 99 of those men were Israelites. You just can't, and you know it. It's based upon a vibe the Spirit told you. I'm discussing publicly accessible facts, though, not the feeling that you have, with all due respect. You guys don't get to talk about church history, because you guys will talk about church history. And you'll say, oh, and a lot of times you get church history wrong. A lot of times you get it wrong. But you can't talk about church history, Catholic, Calvinist, whoever it is, and disrespect it and say this and that, and then say your own history doesn't matter. Because again, Aria, with all due respect, this is old in the sense that it's sitting around at newspapers.com forever. But this has never been brought out to the public. I did a post on it. No one knows what I'm talking about. So, with all due respect, I'm teaching you, okay? It does matter. You should care. Doesn't truth matter, Aria? Doesn't it matter? If truth matters, you should care about this. Well, come on. Come on. Come on. Now, go to the next part. I'm going to read the Targum of Deuteronomy 28. What is a Targum? A Targum is a paraphrase of a Bible verse by who? Hebrew sages and teachers. It's not exactly a translation because there's some interpretive element added to it as well. Shout out to Wall, shout out to Brian, shout out to Oliver Wilson, shout out to Prime Minister, shout out to Jimmy Berman, shout out to Built for Speed. Every single one of you. Shout out to Mason G. Oh, Mason O. A Targum is something that is a paraphrase of the Hebrew scripture. So it's written by the Jews at the time. This is Targum Yonatan ben Uziel, an Aramaic paraphrase. I want to read to you the paraphrase. So this is historic. This is old. This is from back in the day. I'm reading you the paraphrase from Deuteronomy 28:68. This is important. And Hashem, of course, means the name. They won't say Yahweh. This Bible translation I've been using tonight, the Legacy Standard Bible, which I'm loving every time I pick it up. It's a great translation. It just came out. The LSB. Hashem will exile you back to Egypt in ships by way of the Reed Sea. This is what it says in the Targum. Notice how literal and physical it is in the Targum. This is their understanding of the verse. That you once crossed, and concerning which I said, you shall not see it again. And there you will be sold into servitude to your enemies for large sums of money as craftsmen. Now notice that this Targum, which is a paraphrase, doesn't 100% line up with the text. Because it says there, no one's going to buy you, which I take to mean there won't be much of a demand. Here's it says large sums of money as craftsmen. Most likely, the rabbi here is looking back at what parts of what happened perhaps and saying, well, this was fulfilled this way. We don't know exactly why he did it this way, but it's important to understand that the next line lines up with exactly what I'm saying. So I want you guys to see that. And afterwards, you will be sold cheaply as slaves and maidservants until you will be cheapened and try to sell yourselves for nothing, and no one will take you in. So why is this important? Because this shows a way that ancient Israelites, ancient Jews actually thought about this passage. You understand what I'm saying? This is what they thought about it. Because when were the Jews speaking Aramaic? During the days of Jesus, that period that's sometimes called Second Temple Judaism. That period, that's when they were speaking Aramaic. Otherwise, an Aramaic paraphrase doesn't make any sense. Shout out to Prime Minister 66 for the super chat. Thank you very much. So, this Targum shows that they took it literal that they were going to go into Egypt. Do you guys understand? Do you see? This is significant. This is a primary source, is what this was called. I'm not citing Targums like they're God's word. I understand they're interpretive. I've explained that several times. That's why I'm using the phrase paraphrase, not translation. But as you see how ancient Jews interpreted this, it tells you what they thought. Screenshot this. Look it up. This is publicly accessible stuff, people. And you see, oh, they didn't think about it how One West thinks about it. Now, I'm going to read to you from God's word so you don't get too bogged down with the Targums. Why am I going to read from you from Jeremiah 42, 13 through 16, verse 19 on the screen? Why? Because it's going to show you that during the Bible times itself, Jews went into Egypt, back into Egypt. Verse 13, but if you say, we will not remain in this land, disobeying the voice of the Lord your God, and saying, no, we will go to the land of Egypt, where we shall not see war or hear the sound of the trumpet or be hungry for bread, and we will dwell there. Stop for a second. Hold the presses. These are Jews talking to Jeremiah. Oh, you're telling us to stay? We don't want to stay. Why don't they want to stay? Because we're seeing war here. We're hearing the sound of the trumpet. That means people attacking us, mobbing up on us, rolling up on us. We're hungry for bread. But if we go back there, this is the same attitude the Jews had in the wilderness, isn't it? They still have that attitude today. Oh, I heard it was really good there. Are you guys catching on? Are you seeing this? This is in the Bible. This is Jeremiah 42. Jews were already going into Egypt back then at this time. Highlight this verse. Then hear the word of the Lord, O remnant of Judah. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. If you set your faces to enter Egypt and to go live there, then the sword that you fear shall overtake you there in the land of Egypt, and the famine of which you are afraid shall follow close after you to Egypt, and there you shall die. Do you see this? Jeremiah is saying the word of the Lord for the remnant of Judah at this time is to stay in the land of Israel. Yes, we're going into captivity, but our job is to be faithful there and to come back 70 years later and do what God told us to do all along. And as Zechariah will tell them, rebuild this temple. He's saying if you go when you're told not to, because you're trying to avoid what's happening, which is Deuteronomy 28, falling up on your head, it's going to chase you there too. Now, he didn't say it, but you can see it's bad things happening. I bet you slavery was one of the things that would befall them too. What does Jeremiah 28:14 say? Now, stop. I got this a little bit out of order right here. But remember earlier in Deuteronomy 28 where it says the yoke of iron, and Hebrews like to be like, oh, that just happened to us type of thing. Right here it says these nations are going to have yoke of iron. Jeremiah 28:14. I'm giving you verses you need from the Bible to show that their claims are incomplete. These are scriptures that give the fuller picture. Jeremiah 42, Jeremiah 28. Remember those, memorize those, write those down, put those in your phone. These are the verses you need to study, look at, and understand in these discussions. And don't you love the Bible? Even if you never met a Hebrew Israelite in your life, isn't it beautiful to understand better what was happening in those days? Yes. Now I want to show you Jeremiah 43, starting at verse 6. Even women and women, I'm going too fast. Even men and women and children and the king's daughters and every person that Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard who had left with Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, and Jeremiah the prophet, and Baruch, the son of Neriah. So they came into the land of Egypt, for they obeyed not the voice of the Lord. Thus, so see, they're told not to go back to Egypt in Jeremiah 42, but then when you get to Jeremiah 43, it's saying some of those people did go back in there anyway, especially the well-to-do ones. Jeremiah apparently was took by force with them, you know? Also, you have this, 2 Kings 25, 26. The Judeans fled into Egypt when the Babylonians came against them in 597 BC, that some of those would have been from Ephraim. That's relevant to another part there. But I'm going to read this real quick. But it came to pass the 7th month that Ishmael, the son of Nethaliah, the son of Lebanon, city royal, came. Timid with him, smoke Gedaliah, that he died, and Jews and Chaldees were with him, Mizpah, and all the people, small and great, and the captains of armies, and came to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldees. So here's my point by saying that is, 2 Kings 25, 25 and 26 also shows people going back into Egypt. But just hold your horses, because I know sometimes I go fast here. I need to tell you something else, okay? Listen up. If you're not listening, listen here. Let me wake you up. What? Sometime you'll get an Israelite who will say, Jews, we're not Jews. That's those guys. Don't use it. You're not. Where do you get that term from? Or they'll say, Jews are the converts. That's the name for the converts. Did you know that in 2 Kings 25, 25 through 26, it says Jews? That's what it actually says there. Yehudim, and the Jews and the Chaldees that were within Mizpah. That's what it says. So my point is, the biblical writers didn't have a problem using that term. They didn't have a problem using that term. And they did start to use it for all Israelites. That's how it started to get used. Understand? That's important. Now, sometimes you'll see this image. These are Semitic traders. Some people say they're those Hyksos. We don't really know for sure, but they apparently are Semitic peoples. And this is in a mural on Khnumhotep II's tomb. The papyrus mentions the Egyptian lord who had 77. This is a separate. Another papyrus mentions an Egyptian lord who had 77 slaves and 48 were of Semitic origin. What's my point there? That you did have a situation, number one, where you had Semitic slaves in Egypt at various times. And this is different in the timeline, okay? But also, just in this picture, and you can find different versions of this picture, these are Semitic peoples in this image. Notice the Egyptians, the way they portray themselves versus the Semitic peoples here. I'm not saying these are Hebrews or Israelites or Jews, whatever term you want to use. I don't know. We do know they're Semitic peoples. The Egyptians are darker than them. Look up the different version of this picture. See what you come up with. Look up mural on, and then spell that, tomb with Semitic traders. Don't put Hyksos or Jews, because that's not specific, because it's not actually what we know. But there they're portrayed. Are you guys understanding? These are Semitic peoples. That could mean lots of things, though. It could mean lots of things. Notice the Egyptians are darker than them. Now, clearly these aren't Europeans, but that's that. Am I wrong? Hebrews, tell me, what is wrong about this, or being factual? What am I missing here? Someone look it up. See what version you find. See what it says. I'm just saying. All right. Oliver Wilson says they always crop out the Egyptians. Is that true? Now, here's the next thing I'm going to show you. This is a hieroglyph, and it's at the entrance to temple at Abu Simbel. What is it depicting there? Nubian slaves. Now, I'm going to make this bigger, okay? These are Nubian slaves being depicted here. Why is it relevant? How do those Nubian slaves look? If we're going to just talk about phenotypes and superficial facial characteristics, how do those folks look? First of all, someone should do a comparison. Do they look like the Semites? Do they look like the Egyptians? Notice all three are different. Arya Israel, please look this up. Don't just accuse me of that, because these are hieroglyphs. They're not even colored, Arya. So how are you going to tell me I'm whitewashing something? These are just, there's no color in this picture, man. These are phenotypical issues we're looking at here. Look it up yourself before you just say that. Look, it's on the screen. The entrance to temple at Abu Simbel, put Nubian slaves. Notice the phenotype. It's not like the way the Semites were portrayed, and it's not like the Egyptians were portrayed. I'm showing you the source where it's from, so you can look up this and find this for yourself. They are all portrayed differently. This is so obvious, so true, so explicit. You just can't deal with it. Oh, it's about to get good. Wicked Felina, good. It's about to get real good up in here. Hold on. It's about to get real good. We have to drop some facts. Are you ready? Ooh, sorry. That's the wrong one. Oops, that's the wrong one. Hold on. Wait, where did it go? Is this it? Are you ready? I can't find it. Where's the echo button? Hold on. I'm annoyed now. I'm going to find it. Distortion, pitch change, Echo. Where's the echo delay? There it is. I found my echo. Sorry. Hold on. Are you ready? Anyways, okay. Here's what we'll do now, people. I'm going to show you source after source after source after source from Josephus, who speaks about Israel going into slavery, and sometimes he mentions Egypt and ships. All right. Here we go. Josephus was a Jewish historian. He's probably the luckiest trader who ever lived. And he wrote a book called Antiquities of the Jews. It was a Jewish history designed to make Jewish folks understandable and not so bad to the Romans, basically. This is book 12. We're on 1.1. This is all publicly accessible online. Notice how long of an entry I have. So this isn't just skipping through stuff. Can you guys read it, by the way, on your screen? Is it clear? If not, turn your phone sideways or whatever. Here we go. Mike B., by the way, that is true. There was a time where that happened, but not all the time. That's why it's significant. That's probably a helpful article, hopefully, unlike their stuff on evolution. This is what Agatharchides relates of our nation. But when Ptolemy... So who's Ptolemy? So what happened is after the death of Alexander the Great, okay, the Greek Empire was broken up into different sections. We talked about this on our Onias III show. And one ends up being the Ptolemaic Empire, or essentially, or kingdom. There's a Seleucid. And this is Ptolemy's interaction now with the Jews at this time. Are you ready? Here we go. But when Ptolemy had taken a great many captives, both from the mountainous parts of Judea and from the places about Jerusalem and Samaria and the places near Mount Gerizim, he led them all into Egypt and settled them there. Well, it sounds like Antiquities of the Jews, book 12, 1.1, literally says that you have Greeks, yes, that's Europeans, doing what? Going to Judea, going to Samaria, taking captives, a whole lot, and taking them where? Into Egypt. It's literally Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. Someone's going to say, but it doesn't say ships. Like I said, not every source will mention all elements. It doesn't say how they got there. But I think we understand this is what it's talking about. And as he knew that the people of Jerusalem were most faithful in the observation of oaths and covenants, and this from the answer they made to Alexander when he sent an embassage to them after he had beaten Darius in battle, so he distributed many of them into garrisons, and Alexandria gave them equal privileges of citizens with the Macedonians themselves, and required of them to take their oaths that they would keep their fidelity to the posterity of those who committed these places to their care. Nay, there were not a few other Jews who of their own accord went into Egypt. So various places, various times. But this isn't the only one I'm going to give. So you may say, well, that doesn't meet it because, okay, fine. Whatever you say. Let's keep on going. Book 12, 2.1. When Alexander had reigned 12 years, and after him Ptolemy Soter 40 years, Philadelphus then took the kingdom of Egypt and held it 40 years within one. He procured the law to be interpreted and set free those that were come from Jerusalem and to Egypt. Well, this is a commentary forward into what we just read about, where it says Ptolemy took captives from Judea into Egypt. Now you're going to have a later Greek ruler come, and what's he going to do? He's going to set free those that were from Jerusalem and Egypt and were in slavery there, literally enslaved in Egypt, who were 120,000. 120,000 Jews enslaved in Egypt. That's a lot. Arya Israel, I've been real patient with you. I've been interacting with you real cool. I'm bringing nothing but facts and information. And all you have to say is how much money are those Jesuit priests paying you from the Vatican? Honestly, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be embarrassed. Is that all you have? I'm bringing primary sources from history, showing you that your teachers have lied to you. Deuteronomy 28:68 has happened multiple times in actual Jewish history. And that's all you got? Arya, you're a man. Use strictly logic here. I appeal to you as a man to use strictly logic. Just say I was paid from the Vatican by Jesuit priests. Let's just say that's true. Does that mean what I'm saying right now is false? No. Even if your claim and charge was true, it doesn't negate the fact that I bring Jewish sources, Josephus, to bear on the question about Deuteronomy 28:68. You've got to deal with that. You have got to deal with that. And I'm not a Catholic, I'm a Calvinist. Some of you are mad at me now because you found out I was a Reformed guy. Just love me anyway. I love you. All right, keep on going. Whiston is a translator there and has a little note there in his translation, the William Whiston translation, which is publicly accessible. I'm not going to read it now, but it's kind of interesting. It talks about the price and different things like that. So now let's look Antiquities of the Jews by Josephus, Book 12, 2.2. Accordingly, Aristeas embraced the same opinion with those that had been before mentioned and went to the king and made the following speech to him. 'Tis not fit for us, O king, to overlook things hastily or to deceive ourselves, but to lay the truth open. So this guy's trying to get the Jewish slaves set free. All right. For since we have determined not only to get the laws of the Jews transcribed, but interpreted also for thy satisfaction, by what means can we do this while so many of the Jews are now slaves in thy kingdom? Do thou then what will be agreeable to thy magnanimity and to thy good nature, free them from the miserable condition they are in. And this is what, for 40 years? 40 years going on. Because that God who supporteth thy kingdom was the author of their laws, as I have learned by particular inquiry. For both these people and we also worship the same God, the framer of all things, we call him, and that truly by the name of Zion. And there's an interesting little note there. Oops, I'm moving around. Sorry about that. Because he breathes life into all men, wherefore do thou restore these men to their own country? So they're not in their own land. That's not all. 2.3, same book, same place by Josephus. Ready? When Aristeas was saying thus, the king looked upon him with a cheerful and joyful countenance and said, how many 10,000s dost thou suppose there are of such as want to be made free? So he's saying, how many people got enslaved here? How many we got there? Serving Christ. I see what you're saying. I know what you're talking about, bro. You're funny. I hear you, Boss L, too, or Boss E, whatever. Shout out to you on that. How many 10,000 does thou suppose there are of such as want to be made free? To which Andreas replied as he stood by and said, a few more than 10 times 10,000. This is a lot. And he promised to publish a magnificent decree about what they requested, which should confirm what Aristeas had proposed, and especially what God willed should be done, whereby he said he would not only set those free who had been led away captive by his father and his army, but those who also were in his kingdom before, and those also, if any such there were, who had been brought away since. So we're trying to get them all back. You see? And when they stand that their redemption money would amount to above 400 talents, he granted it, a copy of which decree I have determined to preserve, that the magnanimity of this king may be made known. Its contents are as follows. So this is a ruler who is trying to set some of the Jewish slaves free that have been enslaved. Some will say, yeah, but it says there'll be no buyer. Oh, you cut yourself. Well, are the curses forever where they never stop? They have a terminus date. For example, your city walls aren't besieged 24/7, literally. You're not eating your children 24/7, literally. It happens, and then the next thing happens in these curses. So they're not even staying enslaved forever. 2.3, let all those who were soldiers under our father and who, when they overran Syria and Phoenicia and laid waste Judea, took the Jews, now this is being described what happened to the Jews, took the Jews captives and made them slaves and brought them into our cities, which includes Egypt, by the way, and into this country, and then sold them as also those that were in my kingdom before them. And if there be any that have been lately brought thither, be made free by those that possess them, and let them accept of, and he's going to redeem him here, 20 drachma for every slave, and let the soldiers receive this redemption money with their pay, but the rest out of the king's treasury, for I suppose that they were made captives without our father's consent and against equity, and that their country was harassed by the insolence of the soldiers, and that by remaining, what's it say there? Hold on, I'm having trouble. There's a little line thing. Hold on. But by remaining, and that by removing them into Egypt, the soldiers have made a great profit by them. So what's it saying there? The soldiers sell them and made a lot of money off of them. That's what happened. And notice again, it says Egypt. Now we're still in book 12. Now we're in section 2.5. King Ptolemy to Eleazar the high priest sendeth greeting. There were many Jews who now dwell in my kingdom, whom the Persians, when they were in power, carried captive. So this is multiple kingdoms. The Persians did it. The Greeks did it. These were honored by my father. Some of them he placed in the army and gave them greater pay than ordinary. To others of them, when they came with him into Egypt, he committed his garrisons in the guarding of them, because the Ptolemies were kind of an Egyptian-based part of the Greek Empire at this time. And the guarding of them, that they might be a terror to the Egyptians. And when I had taken the government, I treated all men with humanity, and especially those that are thy fellow citizens, of whom I have set free above 100,000 that were slaves, and paid the price of their redemption to their masters out of my own revenues. And those that are of a fit age I have admitted into the number of the soldiers. So they're having these folks go free, and they're paying. But the point by reading all this is just showing you that the conditions they were in prior. Now we're in book 12, 3.3. And all those citizens that have been carried away and are become slaves, we grant them and their children freedom. So this is, now they're getting free, and give order that their substance be restored to them. 3.4. And these were the contents of this epistle. He also published a decree through all his kingdom in honor of the temple, which contain what follows. It shall be lawful for no foreigner to come within the limits of the temple round about, which thing is forbidden also to the Jews, unless to those who are according to their own custom have purified themselves. Now this last section, why did I bring this out? So just stop. Again, wake up everybody. I know it's Friday night. I know it's like 11 o'clock out there in East Coast. I know all that. But listen. Listen up, people. Wake up. I got something to tell you. Okay. We're reading Josephus, a Jewish historian. All right, following? He is relaying at this point what the Greek rulers were saying in these decrees and whatnot regarding what had went down. Here, they're giving them a degree of religious freedom, the Greeks are, the Ptolemies, to the Jews as they live in Israel, because they're getting to go back, the ones who were enslaved and stuff. And look at what he says. It shall be lawful for no foreigner to come within the limits of the temple. So the Greek ruler understood enough about Jewish religion to know that outsiders could not do this. They were allowing them freedom to do this. Which thing is forbidden also to the Jews. And look what it says. Unless to those who, according to their own custom, have purified themselves. So the point about this is, it can happen if they're purified. And it seemed the indication would be out of the foreigner as well. I have to look more into that, but it's interesting for a variety of reasons, especially in light of New Testament teaching. But continuing on. Antiquities of the Jews, book 12, 5.4. This is talking about what happened in the past. He had pillaged the whole city. Some of the inhabitants he slew, and some he carried captive, together with their wives and children, so that the multitude of those captives that were taken alive amounted to about 10,000. He also burnt down the finest buildings, and when he had overthrown the city walls, he built a citadel in the lower part of the city. He also compelled them to forsake the worship which they paid their own God, and to adore those whom he took to be gods, and made them build temples and raise idol altars in every city and village. What's the point of this? I think this is Antiochus now we're reading about. This is a different time where they came in a wreck shop. And notice it's saying he's going to try to make them worship their false gods. Again, that's a fulfillment of Deuteronomy 28. Remember that part? You're going to worship foreign gods, which you have not known. He also appointed overseers who should compel them to do what he commanded. And indeed, many Jews there were complied with the king's commands, either voluntarily or out of fear for the penalty that was denounced. For this is the Jews. It's saying why they would do the stuff that they're being commanded to do by these by Antiochus and his people. For they were whipped with rods, and their bodies were torn to pieces and were crucified while they were still alive and breathed. Are you guys understanding this? This is what happened during antiquity to the Jewish people. You don't get to skip over this and go to the transatlantic slave trade. Because Deuteronomy 28 was never talking about that. And this has been happening to true Jews for a hot minute. They also strangled those women and their sons whom they had circumcised as the king had appointed, hanging their sons about their necks as they were upon the crosses. Literally, the Jews getting lynched on crosses by their Greek bosses, masters, rulers at this time. Specifically Antiochus, I believe, is in this section. 7.2. Hereupon he left one, whose name was Lysias, who was in great repute with him, governor of the kingdom, as far as the bounds of Egypt. That's how far his kingdom goes, and of the lower Asia, and reaching from the river Euphrates, and committed to him a certain part of his forces and of his elephants. Elephants are going to be important. You guys see this? You guys see this? Elephants. I may get to elephants again later in one of these accounts if I get to the third Maccabees thing. I may not get to, but just remember the elephants are part of reality here. Charged him to bring up his son Antiochus with all possible care until he came back, and that he should conquer Judea and take its inhabitants for slaves. So that's what he's going to do. And utterly destroy Jerusalem and abolish the whole nation. And when King Antiochus had given these things in charge to Lysias, he went into Persia. And in the 147th year, he passed over Euphrates and went up to the superior provinces. Now we're in Antiquities of the Jews, Book 12, Section 8.1. Judas made, this is not Judas from the Bible, everybody. Judas made perpetual expeditions against these men and endeavored to restrain them from these incursions and to prevent the mischiefs they did to the Jews. So this is during the Maccabean revolt. Here. So he fell upon the Idumeans, the posterity of Esau, at Acrabadaran, and slew a great many of them and took their spoils. Now, why did I bring this out? This little part here is not exactly about Deuteronomy 28, but it's about Obadiah. You'll always get these guys saying, "Hey, when was Obadiah fulfilled against Esau?" Here's one of the places it's fulfilled. You have Jewish leaders slaughtering and taking from actual Edomites. They're called Idumeans at this point in history. This is so embarrassing. Aria, Israel, okay, again, with all due respect, I'm glad you're here tonight because clearly you don't even have a basic chronology of the timeline of your own ancestors that you claim to have. Do you understand what's happening? You don't, because you're asking, is this the Khazar Jews or the Negro Jews? You don't even know who I'm talking about right now. Because your question is silly. It has multiple false assumptions built into it, but I understand what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, oh, is this like the Jews later on, those white converts? Or is this like our ancestors, our people for real? That means you have no idea of the time of history I'm talking about, that you would ask that. This is why you need to be here tonight, my friend. I'll tell you, because I understand what you're trying to ask. I'll tell you the answer. And I actually already mentioned it. Remember, I just mentioned this is during the days of Judas Maccabees and the Maccabean revolt when they set up their kingdom. That's before Christ. That's in between the testaments, between the period of what's called Malachi. We use the Minor Prophet as the last book, as it is in our Bibles now. But whenever you end the Old Testament, the canon closes, and it's about 400 years until you get to Jesus, that point. This is in between that time, the Maccabean revolt, when they rebelled against their Greek overlords and were temporarily successful. So this is before Jesus is my point. You see what I'm saying? Well, Walsh, but this section right here is not 5th century BC. I forget the exact dates of this particular section. You could look it up, but I don't think it's 5th century BC, this particular section. Somebody look when this particular section happened. this actual section we're looking at right now. But here's my point. You have Jewish leaders at this time slaughtering actual Edomians who were Edomites. He also shut up the sons of Bean that laid wait for the Jews, and he sat down about them and besieged them and burnt their towers and destroyed the men that were in them. After this, he went thence in haste against the Ammonites, whom one Westerners say are the proto stock of the Japanese. They really do, by the way. After this, he went in, who had a great and numerous army, of which Timotheus was the commander. And when he had subdued them, he seized on the city of Jazer and took their wives and children captive and burnt the city and then returned to Judea. Now, I want someone to read this section and tell me why that's relevant, not to Deuteronomy 28, but why it's relevant to the question about what the Hebrews might say about the Edomites. Does anyone understand why it's relevant? Anybody? Let's talk about this. Jazer is near Gilead. It's a city east of the Jordan River. It had been historically inhabited by the Amorites. It'd be interesting to find out exactly who was in the land at this exact time. Regardless, here's the point. This is a Jewish leader taking other nations as captives, and in the earlier section of this, he had beat up the Edomites and slaughtered a bunch of them. You don't think he also took some of the Edomites captive? The point, and they weren't called Edomites at the time, they're called Edomians, but it is essentially the same. And I don't see, even that's kind of tricky. Sort of the same people. Their history gets complicated here. But this is fulfilling what you want in Obadiah. Shout out to BK Apologist. Everyone subscribe to his channel. That's my man right there. And also shout out to Carlton B. Franklin Jr., my man. I appreciate what you said earlier, by the way. God bless you abundantly, bro. Vocab, thank you for keeping me diligent and out of the cults. Hey, I really appreciate that. That's good. Out of the cult, for real? Yeah, okay, brother. I appreciate that. All right, continuing on here. You guys want to look at some more Josephus? We are, but now we're going to the Jewish War. So Josephus wrote multiple books. He wrote Antiquities of the Jews. He also wrote the Jewish Wars. So now let's read from Book 6, Chapter 9.2, from the Jewish Wars by the same author, Josephus. This is skipping forward now. Remember, Josephus lived after Jesus, so he lived after the Second Temple fell. He was there for this stuff. Yeah, Jimmy Berman's exactly right. Joshua Melton, you got it exactly. Thank you. Okay, this is good. You guys are encouraging me tonight, because I'm going to be honest. Sometimes when I do these shows, I ask the audience questions, and I feel like no one knows what I'm talking about except for me. And I'm like, man, what have I been doing this whole time? But tonight I'm feeling like you guys know everything you need to know. Praise God. Seriously. Good. I appreciate this. All right, here we go. Because the soldiers were now growing weary of bloodshed. So this is 70 AD, Second Temple fall. This is after Jesus. This is, by the way, fulfilling Jesus' prophecy about the temple. Because the soldiers were now growing weary of bloodshed and survivors appeared constantly, Caesar orders to kill only those who offered armed resistance and to take alive all the rest. So they're saying they've been killing so many of them that he said, hey, stop killing them unless they resist. The troops, in addition to those covered by their orders, slaughtered the aged and infirm. So the soldiers were in a rampage at this point. They weren't really listening. People to their prime who might be useful, they herded into the temple area and shut up in the court of the women. Caesar appointed one of his freedmen as their guard, his friend Fronto, to decide the fate appropriate to each. So he's triaging them. He's going to sort them all out. All those who had taken part in sedition and brigandage. So you see how Josephus is a sellout, right? Because he's like talking about his fellow countrymen here. It's like, bro, you were part of the rebellion just a second ago, bro. Come on. They informed against other. He executed. He picked out the tallest and handsomest of the lot and reserved them for the triumph. So he went to take the best looking Jews to walk through and be like, look who I got. Look who I trapped up. Okay. Look at this next part. Of the rest, those who were over 17, he put in chains and sent to hard labor in Egypt. while great numbers were presented by Titus to the provinces to perish in the theaters by sword or by wild beasts, those under 17 were sold. You're going to tell me Deuteronomy 28:68 wasn't fulfilled? Look at that. Look at what that says. Look at what that says. This is from the Jewish Virtual Library on the Bar Kokhba Rules 135. I apologize, it's a little small, so let me make this bigger. I should have made this bigger already. I'm going to take up the whole screen for a second. Here's what I would tell you. This is no longer 70 AD. This is 135 AD. What's the point of 135 AD? This is the Bar Kokhba Rebellion. Things weren't entirely ended in 70 AD. They were entirely ended in 135 AD when Bar Kokhba, son of the star, claimed to be the Messiah. Carlton, I'll put your comment on the screen. I do appreciate you, my friend. He says, for real, your method of contending for the faith, calling out false doctrine by respecting context and compromising truth has helped me stand my ground. Thank you. That is a beautiful encouragement. I really do appreciate that. Seriously. Thank you very much. Shout out to you, my man. All right, here we go. Jewish refugees fled to Bethar during the war. In 135 CE, Hadrian's army besieged Bethar, and on the 9th of Av, the Jewish fast day, this is from the Jewish Virtual Library. That's why it reads this way. This is a quote from the website. This is not a primary source, understand? I'm not acting like this is a primary source. I showed you a whole bunch of primary sources already. You understand? Now, I'm going to show you some more, but right now I'm showing you sort of a summation of things from the Jewish Virtual Library that's still helpful regarding the Bar Kokhba Rebellion. Jewish fast day commemorating the destruction of the first and second holy temples. The walls of Bethar fell after a fierce battle. Every Jew in Bethar was killed. 6 days passed before the Romans allowed the Jews to bury their dead. Following the Battle of Bethar, there were a few small skirmishes in the Judean desert caves, but the war was essentially over and Judea independence was lost. The Romans plowed Jerusalem with a yoke of oxen. Jews were sold into slavery, and many were transported to Egypt. Notice it says transported. Judean settlements were not rebuilt. Jerusalem was turned into a pagan city called Aelia Capitolina, and the Jews were forbidden to live there. They were permitted to enter only on the 9th of Av to mourn their losses in the revolt. Hadrian changed the country's name from Judea to Syria Palestina. Did you realize that this is when it happened? So let me explain to you what's going on here. This is 135 AD. Jesus has been gone for about 100 years off the earth. The Jews rebelled again against the Roman overlords, as it were. And this time, Hadrian, the emperor, is so upset. He's so tired of these folks rebelling in his mind that he doesn't allow. This is worse than even 70 AD. A lot of people don't know about this. All right? So what happens is you can't come back, and I'm going to change the name from Judea to Syria, Palestina. Why did he call it Palestina? That's a Roman way to call the land Philistina, the land of the Philistines, basically. It's a dig at the Jews to get back at them. I'm going to name it after your historic enemies. This is where the term Palestine came from. It's from Roman pettiness. In the years following the revolt, Hadrian discriminated against all Judeo-Christian sects, but the worst persecution was directed against religious Jews. He made anti-religious decrees forbidding Torah study, Sabbath observance, circumcision, Jewish courts, meeting in synagogues, and other ritual practices. Many Jews assimilated, and many sages and prominent men were martyred, including Rabbi Akiva and the rest of the Asara Harugei and Malkutin martyrs. This age of persecution lasted through the remainder of Hadrian's reign until 138 CE. Now we're going to go to 2 Maccabees. Okay, understand, these are non-canonical sources. These are sources that have some historical value or merit, but we do not consider 2 Maccabees nor Josephus, who we've been quoting frequently here tonight, to be canonical, nor should we, by the way. Some of you are going to get mad at that, but don't get mad. Just chill out. Just listen. Just hang in there. It'll be all right. Can I read this to you, ladies and gentlemen? This is from R.H. Charles' translation from 2 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 23. And the priests offered prayer while the sacrifices was being consumed, priests and all, Jonathan leading and the rest saying it after him, as did Nehemiah. The following was the prayer. O Lord, Lord God, the creator of all things, who art terrible and strong and righteous and merciful, who alone art king and gracious, who alone suppliest every need, who alone art righteous and almighty and eternal, thou that savest Israel out of all evil, who madest the fathers thine elect, and didst sanctify them, accept this sacrifice for all thy people Israel. Guard thine own portion and consecrate it. Gather together our dispersion, set at liberty them that are in bondage among the heathen. Look upon them that are despised and abhorred, and let the heathen know that thou art our God. What's the point about this? I'm showing again and again in actual Jewish history, actual Israelite history, if you want to use that term, they had been enslaved according to Jewish sources prior to any supposed Khazarian conversion. Shout out to AZB Boy for the super chat. Thank you so much. What I'm encouraging everyone to do is to take screenshots of these sources and then use your crop in your photo thing. You know, what do? And you crop it and get just the source. You don't need my face and all this other stuff on here, right? You don't need that. You just need the source. And I encourage you to do that and keep it on your phone. You got this stuff. But I would encourage you even more to go online and look up these sources yourself. Look at different translations. Do some studying. I'm showing you where to go, but then you look at it. And I haven't even gotten to some of the best ones yet. This is the revenge by Antiochus from 2 Maccabees. When these happenings were reported to the king, he thought that Judea was in revolt. So what happenings? By the way, this ties in directly to the Onias III show. Remember how I mentioned when Onias III, the high priest, got deposed essentially, and then different people took over, and it was like chaos? Antiochus thought, hey, there must be some kind of revolt going on. So he's going to come in and wreck shop. And look what he does. Raging like a wild animal, he set out from Egypt and took Jerusalem by storm. He ordered his soldiers to cut down without mercy those whom they met and to slay those who took refuge in their houses. There was a massacre of young and old, a killing of women and children, a slaughter of young women and infants. In the space of 3 days, 80,000 were lost, 40,000 meeting a violent death, and the same number being sold into slavery. So notice, I've talked about 70 AD. I talked about 135 AD. Now, I am talking about under Antiochus. It says that 80,000 Jews were sold into slavery under Antiochus in 2 Maccabees. Do you guys see this? Do you guys see this? But let me bring up 2 Maccabees right now. I do have it, by the way. I need to bring this up. Because I need to make sure, because you know I'm not perfect, and I got the references, like too many verses on there, so I want to. Okay, let's see. All right, we're bringing it up. 2 Maccabees. Just give me a second. I'm gonna show you the actual. Let's see here. Raging like a wild animal. Oh, come on. That is gonna take a second. Now I'm annoyed. Okay, look. Can someone? Maybe someone can help me and just go ahead and find the part there. Okay, well, now I've got it. All right. 2 Maccabees, 2 Mac. Okay. I should be showing you what I'm doing, but shouldn't I? Let me see here. 4. Is it in 4? Chapter 4. Okay. All right. Chapter 4, and then start 7. Is it 10:9? Gotta look at verse 11. Sorry, this is not good. This is not good. Okay, I'm gonna have to revamp this part, but it's in there. I don't know how I did that. But you can see the verses. So someone should look this up for me right now. Show me where it is. I'm gonna go back to this. I'll put a little note on the show. Okay. Now it's gonna bother me in the back of my mind the whole show. I know how my mind works. I'm gonna be like irritated, like, wait, which spot is that? No, I feel like I just need to go ahead and do it now because I want to find out exactly where it is. All right, we'll just do the King James Version here, I guess, of it. Where to go there? Bada boom, bada bing. Okay. Yep. Maccabees and his company, Antiochus, who was called Epiphanes, son of wicked man. Verse 10. cut down. I shouldn't be doing this on the show, should I? So sorry. Revolt. Yeah. Oh, that's a number I should look up. What? Oh, maybe it's First Maccabees. No, now I'm really confusing myself. I'm not perfect, so I could have done that. I don't have time to do this right now. Okay, sorry. I'm losing everybody. My bad. Stay with me. I'm gonna look at that source later because I have the wrong reference on the screen. Although the quote's correct, I just somehow a typo there. Now we're in 2 Maccabees 5. All right, ready? We're in 2 Maccabees 5. Thank you, Alan Torres. That is a serious super chat. Man, you must have really liked my pause there, Alan Torres. You must have really enjoyed my fumbling and mumbling around because that's a major blessing. So I do want to say thank you very much in all seriousness. Thank you very much. That is a beautiful blessing, and I'm very greatly thankful to you. Continue on here with sources that show this already happened. 2 Maccabees 5 in the New American Bible, verse 21. Antiochus carried off 1,800 talents from the temple. So that was in 2 Maccabees 4, by the way. The place I was trying to read earlier, it was in 2 Maccabees 4, because I do have these in order. I just lost track of exactly where it was. I think it was verse 11, if I'm not mistaken. But seriously, thank you very much. You know what? Let's just go there. Yep, verse 11. Bada boom. No, that's still not right. I'm gonna have to look at that part later because it's not. That the reference is wrong on the previous screen. The quote is correct. Again, thank you, Alan Torres, for the support very much. Antiochus carried off 1,800 talents from the temple and hurried back to Antioch, thinking in his arrogance that he could make the land navigable and the sea passable on foot. So carried away was he with pride. He left governors to harass the nation at Jerusalem, Philip at a Phrygian by birth, and in character more barbarous than the man who appointed him, and at Mount Gerizim, Andronicus, and besides these, Menelaus, we've actually talked about him in our Onias III show, who lorded it over his fellow citizens more than the others. Out of hatred for the Jewish citizens, the king sent Apollonius, commander of the Mysians, at the head of an army of 22,000, with orders to kill all the grown men and sell the women and children into slavery. When this man arrived in Jerusalem, he pretended to be peacefully disposed and waited until the holy day of the Sabbath. Then, finding the Jews refraining from work, he ordered his men to parade fully armed. All those who came out to watch, he massacred, and running through the city with armed men, he cut down a large number of people. So this is yet again an example where you have Deuteronomy 28 type curses fulfilled, and it does include slavery. Now, we're going to continue on in this journey to show you how Deuteronomy 28 verse 68 is fulfilled. 2 Maccabees chapter 8. When Philip saw that Judas was gaining ground little by little and that his successful advances were becoming more frequent, he wrote to Ptolemy, governor of Coelesyria and Phoenicia, to come to the aid of the king's interest. Ptolemy promptly selected Nicanor, son of Patroclus, one of the chief's friends, and sent him at the head of at least 20,000 armed men of various nations to wipe out the entire Jewish nation. Now, they weren't successful. With him, he associated Gorgias, a general experienced in the art of war. Nicanor planned to raise the 2,000 talents of tribute owed by the king to the Romans by selling captured Jews into slavery. So he immediately sent word to the coastal cities, inviting them to buy Jewish slaves and promising to deliver 90 slaves for a talent, little anticipating the punishment that was to fall upon him from the Almighty. Now, I would want to bring that up. 2 Maccabees 8 is one of intention. It's not a historical happening. The point is that this is the kind of thing that happened. This is what he intended to do. This one actually didn't happen because there was successful rebellion, I believe. That's without, you understand what I'm saying? This one didn't happen, if I believe correctly. Now, this is really the biggest one. This one is just seals the deal. Because I know I went through a lot. I want to kind of wind down with just a few more. That's why I don't have a lot of this on there. It just is what it is. Do you see how it's just like, okay, it's just sitting there. Go ahead and read what's on the screen. Can you read that? You guys reading that? You guys reading that? What's that say there? Ain't that crazy? Ain't that intense? This is it, man. Now, I'm looking it up in another source as well. I don't know what people want to do with this. The Romans find the Jews are worth little to nothing as slaves, and the young males were deported to Egypt to work as slaves in the Egyptian mines. Yet again. Now, again, I believe what a Hebrew Israelite will try to do will be like, yeah, but we didn't get ships in there. That's probably what they would try to do. But let me tell you something. If this stuff happened, you know what I'm saying, in any other section, any other time, any other place, they'd be like, oh, shoot, yeah, like this obviously fulfills it, you know? But you know that's what they would say, right? Yeah, we know that. Okay, I'm just looking through currency. To me, it's like, okay, it's pretty obvious. All right, just looking at a few things here. Mine's just Spain. Yep. Okay, yep. So that's, I'm going to show you another one here. Okay. There's just so much here. They're going into Egypt to work as slaves. All right, continuing on here. Are you guys ready? This is an interesting one right here I want to show you briefly. This is from later on Hegesippus. He wrote 5 books on the Jewish war and ruin of the city of Jerusalem. This is 180 AD. He was a Jewish convert to Christianity. He wrote essentially a church history, and we've only got fragments of it left, but there's the name on the screen. And he wrote that concerning the Jews, that after Jerusalem was taken by Titus, so he's referring to the 70 AD situation, many were for sale, but there were a few buyers, and the Romans scornfully rejected the Jews as slaves, whether they were surviving who might redeem their own. So he also attests to this. And this is another translation of the same thing I just read. So I'll probably not go there again because you've seen this already. And now this is a historian who talks about this as well. Frederick Munzer, the Bar Kokhba rules, 135 AD. And look what he says that happened at this time. Now that Betara had been captured, everything came under human control, while Palestine, Judea was reduced to a desolate mound. Captives were sold into slavery in numbers too great to count. First, they were brought to the grand annual market at the Terebinth Elo tree in Hebron, or in the words of Hieronymus, to the tent Ohel of Abraham near Hebron. Each slave sold for the price of a horse. Those captives who were not sold there were brought to the marketplace in Gaza, which is Gaza, which, because of the great multitude of slaves who were sold there, was called Hadrian's marketplace. And those who were still not sold there were herded into ships and were taken into Egypt. Many died in transit, whether by starvation or by shipwreck, while many also were killed by cruel masters. This is a historian writing about this later on. Now, this is not a primary source, but it's a historian writing about what happened at that time. Similar with Emil Schurer, A History of the Jewish People in the Time of Christ, published in 1896. Innumerable was the multitude of those who were sold away as slaves. At the annual market at the Terebinth of Hebron, they were offered for sale in such numbers that a Jewish slave was of no more value than a horse. What could not be disposed of there was brought to Gaza, and there sold or sent to Egypt, on the way to which many died of hunger or of shipwreck. So, literally going into ships into slavery into Egypt. And I like all these comments, just can't look at all of them, but let's talk again. Much love. You guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out late night. Great people up in the chat. Be with you in a second.